So it's nearly time for classic Cataclysm, and I I just really want to talk about it. So I saw the news on Wowhead that they're adding, well, months ago, they slipped in the first finger and they added the cash shop interface into classic. They just sort of had like the wow token at first, and they had the boost they were selling quite a while back. Mad Season did a YouTube video where he like was saying the writing's on the wall by selling like a level boost for classic. That's a really good video, especially now if you want to go back and watch it. I really enjoyed it. But so the pre-patch for Cataclysm is coming out soon, and in it was a cash shop, uh, and I feel like part of why people originally left was the monetization. There was definitely other factors to it, of course, and I kind of want to get into them because like I got time. But I really feel like the monetization had something to do with it. Like people that didn't play at the time, there was the Sparkle Horse, and I'm sure you've heard about the Sparkle Horse like since then, but probably don't understand why it was such a big deal. But there was the Celestial Steed, I think it's called officially, that was added to the game, and the significance of it, besides the trading card game, um, that was a very very expensive, very niche way to purchase in-game items with outside currency. Right? Like you could buy trading card packs and end up getting special in-game items that way, but it was, not everybody participated in it and it wasn't exactly direct. But with the Celestial Steed, you could directly buy a cosmetic item for the game that wasn't earnable in any way in game. And this doesn't seem like this that big of a deal now because it's become the norm. But at the time, people fought back against it. Not a lot of people, obviously, because it was very, very successful. A lot of people ended up buying the Celestial Steed. In fact, it outsold, it outperformed, I guess is a better word, because, I don't know like how many ponies per copies, but it made Blizzard more money than StarCraft did. So, like, people voted with their wallets and said that they are totally fine buying cosmetic items in the game, right? And it's their prerogative if they want to do that. I'm not in any way blaming an individual customer for making a purchase decision. I'm talking about like the greater market, right? Like the player base said that they're fine purchasing vanity items in a game that previously most of the cool items were locked behind participating in the game content. And again, it sounds like ridiculous for me to talk about it now because it's become the norm, but it wasn't the norm at the time. I don't want to repeat myself too much about this point, but I do want to say kind of the significance for the sake of people who had previously played games that didn't have this sort of thing for it to suddenly be put into the game. Um, for people that don't think it's that big of a deal, so Warcraft had a box price, right? Like you had to buy the base game, you had to buy the expansions, you had to buy each previous expansion to catch up to where you were. So by the point of Cataclysm, you had to buy Burning Crusade and Wrath, like, and then Cataclysm. So it was like starting to be an expensive game to even get into as like a new player. The whole only buy the most recent expansion thing is a fairly new thing that they've done. They had like bundles. I think there was the battle chest version or something, but the point is, it was an expensive game to even try. And then it had a monthly fee. And then they added a cash shop on top of it. And that was kind of people's break point because they rightly predicted that the game would take off in the direction that it did. I mean, at this point, they're, in retail, there's still a box price. They expect you to buy the most recent expansion, or you can play the base game without the expansion. They and then there's still a monthly sub. There's a cash shop. There's a viable in-game currency with real money transactions, the WoW token, and then there's also a battle pass. There's the Trader's Post where you can buy cash shop vanity items that come with Trader's Tender. So you can purchase the battle pass effectively. I mean, that's kind of what it is. You can buy rewards by participating in game activities or paying, and that's kind of how battle passes tend to work in other games. That's a lot of layers of monetization. Um, is kind of the point. It there comes a time, and this is, you of course, it's up to the individual consumer, like what they're fine with, what they reject. You know, I'm only talking about like the greater kind of temperature of how people were feeling about it. And I'm bringing it up to put into context, um, like why a bunch of people just stopped playing Warcraft altogether around the time of Cataclysm, and why I personally, and maybe I'm going to be proven wrong, I don't think Classic Cataclysm is going to be that successful because it was a lot of people's quit point. Maybe like people want to go back and see what they missed, and maybe there's going to be like people checking it out for the first time, or people that um, came back later and wish they could have seen the raids when they were new, or that sort of thing. But I just feel like Cataclysm was the point that the game changed, where it was no longer for the existing audience and it started chasing a new audience. And I feel like right around Legion or Battle for Azeroth, it kind of shifted again towards like the current retail version. The more I don't know, mini game sort of boss fights where you're basically like playing DDR, like you're doing all these mechanics, and there's all these like environmental things, and of course like it's got to be a lot of fun for the people that enjoy it, but it and you can say like it's easy to just stand there and missile like a target dummy effectively, like you missile down the target dummy and then you open it, loot pinatas. I've heard um bosses with simpler mechanics called that, but I mean, um, it was an MMO. Like, the point at the time of playing it wasn't to have a great, strong personal challenge, and it would be cool if those were included. The point was to go through an adventure with some friends, and you know, there just wasn't the skill ceiling that the game has now, and the game started drifting towards in Cataclysm. Like really, Mist of Pandaria kind of solidified the the divide that started between the general player base and the raiders. Like previously, a very casual player in time could get into the raids because they didn't really need to pre-gear up. They didn't really need to know much about the boss fights. They usually had like a mechanic or two to worry about, and they could like figure out in a single day how to join the group and participate. Whereas, you know, with the current the current fights, you need to watch a video about how to do it, and good luck doing the fight without like deadly boss mods or something like that installed. And I'm not exaggerating. I remember I was listening to I don't know if it was like on a stream or a podcast, but there is this guy who is like a world first raider, like a really top player, who said that he attempted to play just normal mythics without his add-ons, and that it was like trying to fly an airplane without your instruments. Just the lack of awareness, um it's native to the game without the add-ons, without so many things um that aren't actually part of the game, telling you how to play it, you know? Um, and and I feel like the reliance of add-ons by like the top series rating players like kind of caused another kind of skill gap between just people who have limited time and just want to get on and do, you know, effectively like large scale co-op with their friends and their friends' friends, you know. Um, they I they don't really want to take it that seriously. I mean, like when we would raid, we would have Netflix on in the background, you know? There was like, we would talk on like Vent or TeamSpeak during the downtime between pulls, and it just wasn't that big of a deal. And like, it didn't even matter if loot dropped because like loot didn't really make that much of a difference, and nobody was that worried about finishing their gear piece or whatever because there wasn't the rush to replace it that there was later in the game. You know, like when you got your tier piece in vanilla, you were set until midway through Burning Crusade. So there wasn't, you know, a slight item level increase a few months later. So there wasn't the treadmill that there was later in the game. And that was one of the fundamental differences mechanically in the different versions of the game. But honestly, and this is me coming from more of like a role play background where I care about the feeling of the environment, I care about the music, I care about the ambience, I care I I read the quest, I explore the world. I like um I like that sort of stuff. There was like there is kind of a shift between the feeling um, of the world. It just became so much more formulaic with later expansions, and in fairness, I liked a lot of the zones that they added for Cataclysm. As far as me, I've always liked the original world. Kalimdor was very unfinished. Like the Eastern Kingdoms, they obviously worked on first because there was like a lot of zones, like Silver Pine and like South Shore, and like Ashara, that were very neglected. It feels like they just never finished them. So I was excited that they added some zones to the old world with Cataclysm. I thought that was a really good touch. There was a lot of starter areas, especially like Silverpine and Berlin and everything, that definitely needed some love. And but then with Westfall, they like changed the entire story. You know, they completely replaced the whole vibe of it. Like with originally in Westfall, there was kind of the drought. There was the plot with the stonemasons that rebuilt Stormwind, and then there was I think one Lady Prester have something to do with it, but like they they weren't paid for their work, so they effectively became the Devious Brotherhood, and I thought that that was like a very interesting story because here they are, like hardworking people who, did work in good faith, and now suddenly they're not being paid for it, and they, you know, there's a. I thought that that's like a very human story. You follow the rules until the point where you realize that there's people that don't follow the rules that are getting way more a way more favorable deal than you are. And, you know, the, I don't know, you die young or you live to see yourself become a villain, that sort of thing. Um, I liked that story, and I went back and played the revamped version of it, where there's Vanessa Van Cleef, who's like, um, oh, she's like Hope, um, and she she spends her whole life integrated with the society and like helping people out and everything, just to have a big reveal of, vengeance, I will get vengeance for my father, you know I eh, I don't know. I just didn't find that as interesting of a story. I mean, like, it was it was a little, the old vibe of Blizzard to show her as a child watching the players decapitate her father, like screaming out about it. Like the stories used to have a bit more teeth than they do these days. So I liked that, but it was weird, the decision to remove like a lot of the Defias Brotherhood completely from the area. Like, and I don't know how people feel about bandits or what went on internally for them to make that decision, but it was a noticeable change. And I sort of I I liked the contrast. So when you were originally questing in Elwyn, you were going around, you were just helping out farmers, you were just, you know, like it felt like the actual start of an adventure. You're doing like really small tasks, like, can you help me gather some wood? Can you, you've got some weapons. Can you get rid of some of these extra wolves? Can you, can you bring me some boar meat for a pie? Like that sort of thing. It like, can you go in that cave and get something out because it's kind of dangerous? I liked the general feeling of that a lot more than some of the revamped changes. Like, and I liked the story of the Forsaken a bit more, as unfinished as it was, than the revamped version in like Brill and Silverpine, although mechanically the quests were done better. I just, I missed the vibe of the writing a little bit. Not that many people read the quest, to be fair, but I just, I don't know. I liked the jokes that would be in there. Um, it just felt more like an RPG. And then Cataclysm was the point where it felt more like just a video game. And it's kind of a shame because a big appeal of Warcraft was that it had that old school RPG vibe to it, and that's what drew a lot of people into playing it. It wasn't, like, people had their different reasons, obviously, but I mean, some of the original players were just, they were coming from a different time and a different way of seeing things, and the game shifted to the point that they weren't the audience anymore, and that's totally fine. But I mean, that's why they left. So yeah, I genuinely am curious. Like, is there an audience for classic Kata? Who is the audience, and what is it that they expect um, going forward? Like, I did think it was interesting that Blizzard's doing effectively like kind of a season of discovery type thing where it's temporary, with Mista Pandaria within retail. Like, I don't know if they're planning on going any further than Cataclysm with Classic, but I still I still don't really like their decision not to have the legacy servers for the expansions. I understand that's dividing the player base quite a bit right now, but as far as like the long-term longevity of the game, there probably were people that wanted to keep Burning Crusade. There were probably people that would like to keep Wrath and not go forward into Cataclysm. So the the binary choice between just straight up only vanilla, no expansions, or only the most current one that they're pushing out. And again, like pushing them out, like they decide on their timeline, not when the players are necessarily ready or bored or whatever, to go to the next expansion, or even whether or not they want to. They, originally when people were asking for Cataclysm, like JL and Brock said, you think you do, but you don't. And then later on, he said, okay, you thought you did and you do, because, it was really popular. Um, but I mean, I still think that Season of Discovery was going in a better direction than just pushing out the expansions, working towards, getting Classic to merge back into effectively retail. Because, I mean, it will in a few years at this pace. Um, but there's obviously a difference between the game. Like there's just a world of difference between playing classic and playing retail. Like it's a completely different feeling. um and they can't seem to reconcile like why um players are playing one version versus another. And excuse me, something I genuinely wonder is what happened. What happened with Season of Discovery? So I don't know if the tuning on Sunken Temple was a mistake, or if they did some shifting around and moved some of the retail teams to work on Classic, or like what happened. But I hope that like at Blizzard they can understand that there just genuinely is two separate audiences. That there's no way that you can kind of force like people that want two separate things to meet somewhere in the middle and have the same content, because that will make nobody happy. Like you can't make mythics easier. You can't make retail less complicated, as long as there's you know add-ons and like the experience, because the people playing arena at this point, because the participation rate is so low, and the skill, what a player can do to another player with that skill gap and gear gap is ridiculous. It's really demoralizing to go in and just be deleted in any kind of PvP. So it doesn't have the same participation rate that it used to when in vanilla. People would just go into AV all the time in or Alternate Valley, and like a lot of people didn't even know what to do. They would just follow the crowd. But there were so many people that would play. I remember they were taking out ranks, so I was playing so I could end up with a rank once they went away. Oops. And I played quite a bit, because ranks were kind of broken then, and you outranked by just playing more. So I got knight on a character. But I remember, besides people defending the cave, which was part of the problem, I could play for a couple of hours, and it wouldn't be the same group of people for most of it. Like I would see a couple of familiar names, but like basically there was enough people that there were multiple groups going the whole day. And and now there are people that make content about um, raiding or playing PvP and WoW. And sometimes their content is just them sitting there and talking about the game for 15-20 minutes while waiting in the queue for a single game. Like the participation rates are just lower, because the people that are good at it have been good at it and have been playing for like 10 or more years, doing the exact same kind of content. And like the entry point for a new player is just, it's not happening. So, So yeah, I'm I'm in no way surprised that Warcraft added in the cash shop to like Wrath and Cataclysmic. You know, they've added like the WoW token into Wrath like a few months back anyway. Like the integrity, if you can call it that, of the game is kind of lost. And it's fine because I think a lot of the original players that kind of came back to play Classic are gone too. So it doesn't really matter. But I just, it's just so disappointing because there really was an audience for the game. But like, there, it just feels like something's been lost in translation. Like, they, they listen to what people say, but they still try to implement it in a way that they don't deliver what people are asking for. And I I stayed optimistic because I genuinely really enjoyed like Warcraft, but I don't know. I came back and left multiple times. Like I played it a lot in the early years and then I would try to play it and fall off and try to play it again and fall off. Like you know, I last played Season of Discovery, so like you know, I've played it not continuously, but you know, often throughout its entire existence. Um, but you know, I just like for a very long time, I feel like it's not a game for me anymore, and that's totally fine. You know, there's plenty of games that are for me, and I enjoy them, but it was still sad to see um, it lose its audience, and even now that they're doing things that should be winning the audience back, I just I don't think it is. And I don't I didn't want this to kind of be a downer. I was just kind of thinking about like what made me like put off like by Warcraft, like the changes and everything. And I don't know. I don't want to lament it too much because there is still like a lot I like about the game. Anytime I'm actually going back and playing, when I'm kind of into it, I still have a lot of fun. I was like an alcoholic. I mean, um, like a bunch of characters. I mean, sometimes I think I just played too much, and that was a part of my problem. That I was just way too invested in it. It went, it went past being just a hobby for me, and having some distance from that was probably a good thing. But I spent so much time in the world, and I didn't like the point where they changed it. I don't know. I really think it was more of the mechanical and game development philosophies that changed more than like the actual just world changing. But I think the world changing was symbolic of that, you know, like and that happened again with like Battle for Azeroth, with like Sargeras's sword and Sithilus and you know getting rid of like Undercity and Darnassus and places that you know maybe they weren't the developer's favorite place, but you know I mean sure you can like talk to the NPC and go back to the old version of it or whatever, but like to know that they're like canonically gone, that's it just I don't know why they did that. Um, I mean, like it probably doesn't matter because I mean, I've played games that have done that and it's been totally fine. Like Guild Wars 2 had Lion's Arch and there was a there was a really cool thing that they tried, the Living World, where they they destroyed the city. They just replaced it with a different version of it. And there's points in the story where you can go back and see the old version a little bit. And you know, like Final Fantasy 14 blew up the whole world and redid a lot of it. And but you know, they still kept some of the original vibe. They just made it a mechanically better game. So like, it's not that this is unprecedented. It's just that um, they lost they lost a lot of the original feeling of the game. I really feel like they did. And I feel like getting back to the point where they lost everybody is probably going to be the end of Classic going forward. So I understand and appreciate that they're going in different directions now. Like they're going to get to Kata, Classic Kata's about to be out. But they are trying Season of Discovery. They are trying some like stuff, like temporary stuff with time walking in retail. But yeah, I'm genuinely curious what's going to happen with Warcraft going forward. Um, More of like an outside observer at this point than like a dedicated player. Um, if you're somebody that like played Warcraft a lot, like do you still play? If so, how recently did you join? And if you are somebody like that fell off, like what was the point that you left? And do you remember like at all like your general sentiment and why, or was it like a combination of things? I'm just genuinely curious. Okay, take care.